Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome back to Stick a Fork in It, your favorite food podcast of all time.
Yep.
Every single guest we have is very exciting, but this one in particular is like an industry celebrity, a favorite of ours, someone we've worked with
iconic,
very.
Let's see if they live up to the expectation.
Yeah.
of the podcast.
I'm setting the bar.
Yeah, we're
setting it very high. Yeah. This is someone that we've worked with closely. We've had a lot of help from them. We've given a lot of help in recent years, and we even took a lot of pages out of their book for our facility.
Yeah, I would say one of the great things about our network is that we're non-competitive, so that means we're collaborative, and there probably are 4 or 5 folks around the network that I've learned the most from, and our guest today is one of the ones that has helped me, and then by extension helped us as a food relief organization tremendously. Deep thinker, a bit of an agitator, but long time leader in our industry.
Yeah, very exciting. So if you want.
So before we get to that, I was thinking about our guest, and I was thinking about being opinionated.
yeah.
Right? So one of the things I like to say to our colleagues about being opinionated, I'm strong. My opinions are very strong, but it doesn't mean that I'm right. Yeah. Although my colleagues would say, well, you think you're right all the time.
Sometimes.
You should give that caveat, though.
Yeah.
I might not be right.
Yeah.
How do we think about opinionated people? What's our opinion of opinionated people? Do you listen to talk shows? And if so, what do you listen to?
I do sometimes, and of course I listen to other podcasts, but mostly I'm trying to learn from them all weekend. I'm trying to pull stuff from them.
So are you attracted to people that have strong opinions, or are you attracted to people that are thoughtful and more open in their consideration?
I'm actually more attracted to people with strong opinions, even though I may not agree with their opinion. It's their strong approach, right? So to me, if you have the juice to back up being opinionated, then I might listen. Doesn't mean I'm going to take action. Doesn't mean I'm going to believe what your opinion is, but I will listen because you have the juice to back it up.
Yeah.
So you have some very, very thoughtful feelings about how the world operates.
I do.
For those of us that follow your social.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Opinionated people, helpful to you, not helpful? What do you think?
I think I respect expertise when it comes with humility.
How do you define expertise?
Very well said.
I think that, like Shannon was saying, if somebody has like the receipts, if they can show you why they think what they think, then I respect that. It won't necessarily mean that I think you're absolutely right, but I'm a lot more likely to listen to you if you're like, I think this because of this, rather than just being loud.
Right. It's like respect. Like you give that person the respect. So if it's a journalist who is no longer on national TV and then they have very high opinions and they're very well known for digging deep, may not have, but I like listening to that because they work very hard to be informed.
Do you believe it?
Not always.
How do you know the difference? This is exactly what's wrong with our world. It's people like you that are listening to this stuff. No, I'm kidding. For the listener, I was kidding.
Yeah, Shannon is she does her homework.
So then, even when it comes to books, right? We've talked about this before. Like if there's a book that has kind of a historic spin on it, I will look it up and go like, is that fiction or are they basing that? So I question for sure.
Yeah. There's a friend of mine that used to say, one of my favorite sayings that I remember of him is he said, "You're welcome to your opinion, but you're responsible for the facts."
I like that.
I like that one too.
Right.
So I think we all agree. Right. If you can back up being opinionated.
Right.
Do you think everybody here at the organization thinks I'm right all the time? That's really what I want to know.
I'm going to take a big no.
Just pleading the fifth. Okay, never mind.
All the meetings,
all the
meetings we're in.
Well, that said, we have
But some of your opinions are wonderful and meaningful, and it comes from experience, so therefore it's respected.
I just wish people would listen to me a bit more.
That's why we have the podcast.
Right.
Speaking of opinions.
Yes. Speaking of opinions, so we teased our guest. I'm real excited because he's here for the day. He put out a paper that there's a part of it that I went deep into studying and had some ideas. So there's the largest food bank in the nation. Ev talked about how they came here. Gorgeous trucks, simplest, gorgeous trucks I think I've ever seen. It is the Houston Food Bank, and we have their CEO, Mr. Brian Greene, with us
Mr. Greene,
today.
welcome.
Well, I must say that was probably the most unusual introduction I've ever received.
Yep. There you go. Welcome to FTB.
Right.
Yeah, we're pretty excited to have you here.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation. I just thought I was coming to tour your facility and learn some things as we're working on what changes we're going to make.
You have to sing for your supper.
I was going to say, we put you to work here, without a doubt. And it's Hunger Action Month.
Yeah.
Which we're going to be doing all kinds of things around taking action for our neighbors. That includes advocacy, all kinds of things. We have a lot of topics to talk to you about. But first and foremost, we want to learn a little bit about you. So food banking, right? What influenced you? How many years have you been in?
I've been here doing this work for 36 years.
Holy
36
cow.
years. So who was that influence that had you step into this world? Why?
Well, it was actually, I think like a lot of people in food banking, it was an accident. I mean, I wasn't like as a kid, I want to be a food banker.
Right.
Yeah.
I was like,
What are you going to do?
Yeah, that was not one of the answers.
Yeah.
Do you think kids are saying that today at all? No.
I don't
You know,
know.
actually,
Carrollwood Day School, fifth grade
I am
class.
starting to get that.
Oh,
now.
wow.
Yeah,
People
he
like
is too.
Yeah, especially people who experienced food insecurity as a kid, and then they just the help that meant and what that meant to them. Whereas before, that didn't mean anything. But now, because there are these institutions where they say, "Hey, wow, this is really significant. This is something that I could do myself." So it's starting to happen. So not for me.
Right.
So I was in graduate school. I was working on a doctorate in economics, which I didn't finish, at the University of Tennessee. And I took a leave of absence because I wanted to do a do-gooder stint before I was going to finish or get on my career as an academic.
Right.
So I wanted to do a do-gooder stint, and I also wanted to come up with an idea for a dissertation. And so my goal was to take any job I could get in either hunger or homelessness, two phenomena that don't make much sense in a rich society. And then I would feel good about what I was doing, help people, and then, go be an academic and write this brilliant dissertation and stuff. Yeah. Oddly enough, the food bank there hired me as the executive director. I was 25, never run anything.
Wow,
totally unqualified.
For the listener, you showed up to say, "Hey, I'd like to learn more about this," and you ended up with the executive director job?
Wow. Wow.
And so anyway, this was in the early days of food banking. Yeah. And, in retrospect, I didn't realize at the time, but, you probably would have to be just dumber than a rock not to succeed in food banking back then. Because it's such a good concept. And so in the early days, you got such a good concept. There's so much opportunity out there, mountains of it.
What year would this have been, Brian?
1988.
Okay.
So that I could go in and kind of fumble around, work with people. I realized quickly, geez, I don't know management very well, but economics is in the business school usually. At Tennessee it was. And so I flipped over and was taking MBA courses to try and catch up on that kind of stuff. Yeah. So basically I kind of had like a 5-year period where the food bank's doing well. We tripled in output, but that wasn't because of any brilliant leadership.
You can take credit for it.
And I learned a great deal, and I realized, this is really, really neat. I mean, I get to have significant impact for just so many people. I mean, how else could I ever do something like that? And so I just never realized I don't want to stop doing it. And so I realized I didn't want to go to a bigger city, so I went to New Orleans. And I was there for 12 years. And
How long were you at your first stint?
Yeah.
5 years. 5 years in Knoxville, which to me, of course, I was young then. That seemed like a long time.
Yeah.
And I thought that Knoxville, I had taken Knoxville as far as it could go, is what I thought. If you go there now, you'll find out that's totally not true. They don't even remember that I was over there, I'm sure. But anyway, so I wanted to go bigger where I could do more, so I went to New Orleans. And, New Orleans was really neat, kind of frustrating. It's a poor city, and if you're in the anti-poverty business, you're a more dynamic environment, quite frankly, is more gratifying. But anyway, so then I went to Houston, and I've been there ever since.
Which is how long? How long have you been at Houston?
Well, I guess 19 years now.
Tell us a little nuance about New Orleans that when you were there.
Well, so it's a really neat place to live. It's fun, particularly as I was a young person, right? I was young and single, and so quite enjoyable. People were really nice. It's different from like Tampa or Houston in that people tend to be natives. So you go somewhere and they ask the question, or the question most likely to be asked is, where did you go to school? And they mean, what high school did you go to? Very traditional, very, hey, we like things the way they are, very historic. But so you go to a place like Tampa or Houston where it's like change. Yeah. And personally, I like that.
Yeah.
So as from a charity standpoint, it's actually, it's easier in a place like Houston or Tampa, because if you have a good idea that's not the way things were, people are much more likely to get behind it and get aggressive about supporting it. And so getting things done is a lot easier. And so the changes that we've made in Houston, I never could have done in New Orleans, quite frankly.
Did you know that when you were in New Orleans, or did you figure that out after you got to Houston?
I only figured that out after I got to, I like to tell people I got a lot smarter when I made it to Houston. And that was became part of my management lessons is, think about the constraints that we accidentally put in front of people. If you want to stop something from happening, you don't have to put up a wall, just put up speed bumps. You put enough of them up, you'll discourage almost everybody from kind of being very aggressive about what they can do. So yeah, I'm very pleased to be in a very dynamic environment.
When did you realize food banking was your career?
I think I realized it towards the end of my time in Knoxville. When by then I'd realized, I really don't want to be an academic after all. And I was thinking about, does that mean I'm going to go get a regular for-profit career? And friends of mine in food banking said, "Why would you leave this? This clearly fits you so well." And I said, "Yeah, I guess I can do that." Of course, in those early days, if you were taking these jobs, you were doing this almost to lose money.
Right,
like
pretty much.
We didn't pay well at all.
Right.
So I needed to go to a bigger city, and then okay, you know what? I can afford to live like this. I still was kind of thinking I was always going to be single and irresponsible for the rest of my life. So that made it easy too.
It's good to have goals.
5-year plan. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like, because I was going to do things for the cause, and that's what I thought about.
Yeah.
And eventually it just turned into, no, this is something that is a legitimate profession.
Yeah.
And we need to hire professionals, and we need to treat them as professionals, and we're going to get a whole lot more done. And that, quite frankly, made it more viable to do this as a responsible adult with a family.
Right. Tell us about your family.
Well, so been married. I got married not too long after I got to Houston. My wife was actually working for Feeding America, the national organization. And so
I did not know this.
All right.
We had started dating, long distance dating as food bankers.
What did she do up there?
She was over conferences and training for Feeding America at the time.
Nice.
And
that.
so she agreed to eventually, move into Houston with me. And since then, of course, we have 2 kids, a 17-year-old junior and a 16-year-old sophomore. They couldn't be any more different.
It's usually how it is.
For the listener, you want to be on Brian's Christmas card list.
Yeah.
This year, the Christmas card was his 2 boys posing as figures from Pulp Fiction.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
Okay.
With candy
Very
canes instead
cool.
of guns.
Yeah, candy
that's great.
canes instead of guns. But they looked great. His Christmas card every year is very interesting.
Oh, that's great.
Nice.
Now, who's the creative between you and your wife?
I think we
With
would
something
both
like
say
that.
we're just
Yeah.
no.
Split
That's something that like years ago, our attitude is, why are you doing these Christmas cards?
Right.
Nobody does Christmas cards anymore. And I go, I just want to do this.
Yeah, and make them fun.
So yeah, just come up with
to
something
where people
each year.
talk about it
Well, there you go. Yeah.
years later. So you've been in food banking for 36 years. I'm curious, which will lead us into more detail. Is there a favorite or a key experience or program that you launched that you would say was like your first and most impactful?
Yeah, definitely. So for us, and I think we had an epitome similar to I think what's happened with Feeding Tampa Bay, where you just realize the magnitude of what we're doing, and are we having as much long-term impact as we should, given the magnitude of what we're doing. So you see, like in the early days of food banking, when I started, we had a theory of change that we could end hunger in America with food banking. Now, I don't mean just forever, but just at least on a day-to-day basis.
Right, that there would be enough food in enough
everyone.
homes that it would balance out.
Right, just on a day-to-day basis, because there's more surplus, there's more food waste in the United States than there is hunger. And, if that was true, well, there wouldn't be hunger in the U.S. today, because we do way more food than theoretically would have closed that gap back in the 80s. So anyway, you kind of got used to, okay, that's not what we're doing, but boy, are we certainly helping people. And so we're alleviating hunger. We're reducing food insecurity. We are helping people stay in their houses and all that. And so that's good. But we hit the $100 million a year mark. So the dollar value of where Houston was at the time was about $100 million worth of food at wholesale a year. And it suddenly occurred to me that was larger than our United Way. That was larger than the grants from the largest foundation. So how much assistance are we supplying through local charities was more than anyone else. Now, there wasn't a bragging point, but it was a realization, oh my God, no responsible funder, no responsible foundation, United Way, would ever say, well, so long as I'm writing checks to nice charities, I'm doing a great job. But that's how we were treating the food. So long as we were shoveling the food out the door to these charities to get it to people, hey, we're doing our jobs. We're making maximum impact. But it's $100 million worth of resources a year. Are we maximizing the help, the gain in our community for people who are struggling? And I had to answer the question, we don't even know. So we kind of started this journey. Now, this started about 13, 14 years ago, this thinking. And about, so what do we do? And so first I was thinking this was like a measurement question. How do we evaluate our partners and how much of a gain? And there's different methodology that we looked at. And eventually, playing around, we came up with this concept of what we called food for change. And the idea was, how do you think of the food as an investment to support other initiatives that are designed to get people out of the need for food banks? And so the first iteration that we came up with was what we called food scholarships, still do to this day. And so the idea of a food scholarship is not like a classic college pantry, although they didn't exist at the time.
True. Yeah.
But the idea is this is not just like, oh, here's another form of food assistance that you can get, is how do we supply enough food to more financially stabilize the student like a scholarship would be? So the reasoning kind of goes like this. If you tell me that when you went to school, you had to ramen noodle it up and sometimes you had to miss meals, but you got your degree, you graduate, and you're doing fine. I don't care. I don't feel bad for you. This is just one of those bragging points. So this is your Horatio Alger story. So you can talk about how wonderful you are, how the obstacles you came up with. It's like, no, it's the person who doesn't graduate. That's the tragedy, right? So the issue isn't hunger per se. It's financial stability to try and help them complete. So we kind of flip the goal. Instead of thinking like our job is to try and reduce food insecurity, reduce hunger, the goal for this kind of work is to support other organizations that make it so that there's not the food insecurity anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
So so that's kind of the initiative. And so we started with the food scholarships, which turned out to be hard, but we're now doing it for thousands of students a year. We're trying to get it to tens of thousands.
Yeah.
And then, of course, similar like we do here, we have the food prescription work and, that direction, the job training. So there's just trying to think about how do we use this resources, which for Houston is now over $250 million worth of food a year. Wow. And it's like, try and channel as much of that as we can to more long-lasting, because I think that ultimately is where food banks need to be thinking.
So, it's interesting to listen to that, Shannon, to the question that you asked. I think all of us that originally started, I started in 2008, so I still feel like I was on the end of the first.
Young pup.
Yeah.
But I recall there was never, in fact, I would say to people specifically, we're not in the poverty business, we're in the food business.
Right.
And I think what you're alluding to is what the big shift for all of us are. And I think what we would say to a community today, those of us sitting at this table today will not solve this problem.
Right.
Hopefully somebody behind us might. But the reality is we had to accept two very different truths at the same time. One was that need was growing at a greater pace than opportunity, and that people were not necessarily going to move out of our care. As one of our colleagues used to call it, they didn't have exit velocity, right? They weren't able to move out of our care. One of the moments of truth that came for me was probably about 2 or 3 years ago, and I had come here in the team that we assembled in 2012, and we were doing about 15 million meals a year. And in the year that we were thinking about this, we had just done 85 million meals, right? So we had moved from 15 million meals a year to 85 million meals.
That's a massive jump.
It is. But we're further behind as a percentage of need.
Yeah.
And the moment that we realized that, for me, that was a pretty devastating moment to say, wait a minute, what business improves its output by eightfold,
right,
yet is behind the client demand even further? And I think for us, for me, that was a defining moment to say, much like you're talking about, we have to think differently about this.
Yeah, and also it's the way that the general public sees this work, and the way so many food banks still kind of embrace it, in my opinion, also is something that Thomas and I talk a lot. We've changed. And part of that reality is recognize that food insecurity isn't about food.
right.
Food insecurity is about income and expenses. Yeah. And so food really, what we're doing with, it's a resource. It's not itself the gap. The lack of enough income is the gap.
Right.
It's just how do we maximize how we fill that gap with what we can very cost effectively do, but all the while recognizing that the real problem is people not making enough money. And I think that's where we as a society, if we don't address that, the charitable sector is never going to make up enough of the difference.
Well, this is an interesting thing. I'd like to get your thoughts about this if we think about it. So when we look at the history if we look at, John Van Hingel and the start of food banks and the concept was, as we would describe it, as Van Hingel understood there was excess food and there were people that needed, let's create a mechanism in the middle to connect the two.
Right.
Which is really what we would say charity is at its best. It connects opportunity with need, steps into those places, doesn't create it, it solves it. But we're long past that, right?
Yeah.
How do you think about us today versus that simple concept of we're stepping into this gap because the gap's widening?
Yes.
Like, how do we think about that as an industry?
Yeah, so we start with classic serve the line food banking is, there was the John Van Hingel vision, right?
For the listener, John Van Hingel opened the first food pantry. Sorry, listener.
Well, you started, so I assume you've been talking about John Van Hingel the whole time. So anyway, they serve the line. That's what we do. And then you started to get a lot of talk what we call shorten the line. And it's like, what are the initiatives that you do? Now, I would challenge most of our initiatives on shorten the line because the way I look at it is you need two things to be legitimately shortening the line. First off is efficacy. Just because you do an activity that is designed to help someone make change, personal change actually tends to be pretty darn difficult and is rarely just change one variable. But anyway, so first off, you need efficacy. The second thing you need is scale. If it's not large enough to be significant relative to the size of the line, it's not meaningfully shorting the line. Because you think about just changes that are happening in the economy will swamp whatever you're doing. So we came up with the idea of the 1% rule. So the programs that we're doing that we want to call shorten the line need to be able to reach at least 1% of the population that is food insecure.
Somebody write that down.
It's being recorded.
That is a great way to think about scale.
Right. So in Houston's case, it's kind of scary. So we now have 1.3 million food insecure people in our service territory. So that's 13,000.
Wow.
So those food scholarships we're bragging about here, damn it, we're not even at 1%.
Right.
That's why it's like we got to get this to 10,
right.
Tens of thousands. We can show that it works, but we're not doing it at a big enough scale. Okay. But even if we're wildly successful at this, we are not going to win because the nature, the causality of the problem is getting worse. It's like low wage employment is what the issue is. And even some of the jobs that we're most focused on, and we're most focused on at Houston is the middle skills jobs. where it's like almost guaranteed living wage employment. You complete this certificate program at the community college, HVAC, welding, medical technician, et cetera. Problem is, 20 years from now, how many of those jobs are even going to exist?
Right.
And you look at why we have such a wage problem in the United States, it's because more and more people competing for that pool of low-paying jobs, and it's just holding those wages down. Well, what's it going to be like when truck driver isn't a vocation?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, we're going to just come up with new jobs. Are we? Are we? Right. When with AI and robotics, we can do so much more. Now, I am not arguing against AI and robotics, just like I don't argue against international trade. These are great things that make us richer. Our problem is the distribution of that riches is what's gone haywire. And if we don't address that as a society, we're going to be in big trouble. And this is where I get relevant for food banks. Yeah. Food banks gather more people who are in very different economic circumstances than anybody else. So we have massive numbers of people who are struggling that we work with, and we have really large numbers of people who are doing well who come to volunteer with us and engage with us. The problem, as I see it, is those people are separate. And one of the things that we need to be doing, just thinking long term, is how do we bring these population flows together? Because if you look at the biggest difference in our society over the last 20 years is how much more isolated we have become, how much more siloed. And we all thought years ago that the internet was going to bring us all together,
right?
And it has done the exact opposite.
A lot of buddy guys on there. Yeah.
It's like everybody's in their little sound bubble, where they just echo chamber where they hear those stuff. And it's like, food banks are in a really neat position to try and fight this. And so I think that we need to kind of adopt kind of a third track, that we don't give up doing the other two lines of work. We're still going to serve people who are hungry. We are still going to try and help people better their lives who are food insecure or struggling. But ultimately, we have got to change the political landscape of our country, and that doesn't mean because everybody adopts my position or your position or whatever. But it's getting people together to stop the divisiveness so that we can actually come to an agreement on what we do with our increasing riches as a society.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Well, there's a wee bit to unpack in there.
Yeah, just a smidge.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting. So years ago, we did our second strategic plan, and I interviewed about 5 or 6 food bank leaders, one of which was a good friend of ours, Matt Habash, at Mid-Ohio Food Collective. And at the end of the interview, we did it with our board and stuff. At the end of the interview, one of our board members asked, "So Matt, what are you worrying about?" This is probably 8 years ago. Matt goes, "Artificial intelligence." We're all like, "What?" "Why are you worried about artificial intelligence?" He said, "I live in Columbus, Ohio. A significant portion of the jobs in Columbus, Ohio can be replaced by AI. That means those people are likely to end up in my care." I share that story for this reason, which is kind of what you're talking about, which is the way in which we have to think about our work. Right? So going back to the John Van Hengel model, noble work done by people who were basically pushing as hard as they could, shouldering in, right? Versus, let's just all have a collective will, versus today, the sophistication level necessary for us to deal with a problem of this size and scope is significant. Who we are as a network has changed dramatically. So here's the question I'd like to ask. As you think about the next iteration of food relief, of food banks, or we would refer to ourselves now as a community-based organization who happens to have a big food bank inside this building, how do you see the next iteration of the evolution of our work? Do we become – so let me use one more example. Years ago, I went through a program where we studied nonprofit movements. It was about strategic imperatives in the nonprofit world. One of which was, and if there's a listener out here that I get this wrong, please let us know, but it was about Kaboom playgrounds. If you don't know what a Kaboom playground is, it was started by a young man who had gone through group homes where they didn't have playgrounds. When he got out of the group homes, he wanted to make sure that everybody who went through a group home, right, had his chance to have a playground, right? Perfectly great idea. He built a nonprofit called Kaboom where they would build playgrounds. So they would get a company to sponsor it. They'd get a local municipality or place where everybody could agree the playground would go. And they would build it. You have them in Houston. We have them here in Tampa. They've been put up all over the place. And as they looked at the size and scope of the issue, there were thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of kids that did not have access to playgrounds. So their first, you would have Kaboom come in, sit down with you, help you build it. They were very hands-on. They realized we're not getting anywhere against the size of the problem. So then they decided the next iteration was they would build an off-the-shelf product. So we'll do the core stuff, and then we'll have an off-the-shelf product so we don't have to be so labor-intensive, you and your shop. So that took them from a couple hundred a year to a couple thousand a year. They're still. Right?
Yeah.
So they decided to focus on advocacy. They want to get to a place where every municipality is required to have playgrounds.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know where they are in all this, but that left a significant impression on me as to how they saw their future.
Yeah.
I don't know that I agree with that for our network, but that's kind of the basis of the question. How do we think about the future?
Okay. So a lot to unpack there. So the first part is I think that it is the original work that gives us our ticket to the game. It is the serve the line work, which is why people support us, and it is why the neighbors overwhelmingly join with us. Even as we're doing shorten the line work in these partnerships, it is generally the food that gets them in the door in the first place. So like as a mission, it's not only has value in and of itself, but I think it's what gives us the ability to then take whatever the next step is. And I agree with you that ultimately it's a different form of advocacy. My concern is in hardcore divided America.
Right.
If we try and say, you know what, we're going to advocate for a playground or the hunger equivalent, everywhere, we just join the partisan fray and lose. Because if you just look at what's going on in America, it's kind of like, we fight over the 50-yard line. And, one party moves the ball 3 yards over, and then, the next party moves the ball 3 yards. And it's just like, we're not getting anywhere because we're not really thinking of this from a fundamental standpoint. What's going on is the changing of the economy, and how does that change people's lives? Which is why I think our best route is to try and continue to engage the general community first as food banks, but then start to have those conversations. But do so, we need to be very nonpartisan, which food banks already do that, but also just kind of open to listening and trying to get people to talk with each other. And then we see how we can push to solutions. That's how I see it.
One of the things we say here is food is the Switzerland of charities.
Yeah, it's been so. Yeah.
Right? Do you think there's a middle way anymore?
That's the problem. Is like, if you look in today's landscape, it doesn't look like there's a middle way. I think there is. I think that ultimately there has to be. But this is like, we've so poisoned the well that undoing that is going to take a lot of work. But ultimately, there has to be.
Right.
I mean, you think about go to, Matt Habish's example, or talking about AI alone. What could that do? As you now have all kinds of jobs that they thought they were safe, and now they're trying to get the job as the greeter at the store. To survive. Are we going? Is that what we're going to be as a society? Is that sustainable, or are we actually going to have something really, really nasty happen as a result? And either outcome is just horrible to contemplate.
Yeah.
And right now, I don't think that we're as a society having enough people say, "Whoa, we got to do something here." And so, at least starting those kind of conversations, but doing it in a way that doesn't immediately divide people. Because that's the problem. Because as soon as you divide people, they stop listening.
Right.
Well, one of the wonderful things about our network is the work we do as a uniter.
Yeah.
Right. For all of us, we will have folks that are ardently on both sides of a political spectrum come in and work together to serve their community. It is a nice part of the work that we do, is it tends to bring people together. So, we've talked a lot about the challenges of society. They've come up naturally, and we. Shannon and I attended an event a couple of weeks ago where the host asked the question of what it's like to sit in our shoes. And the answer to the question is, we see the absolute best in people because we see people that have a grace and a thoughtfulness and a caring that surpasses expectation. We also see people at their absolute worst when they've been devastated by circumstances we wouldn't want anybody to go through. It's a privilege to be in both of those moments together. And I think it's one of the great things about our work. So what gives you hope? You've been doing this for 36 years. You still appear to us as relatively vibrant. Yeah. Seems to be doing okay. He's wearing an elbow brace. I'm not sure what that's about. What gives you hope to continue to do this? How do you think about that?
Well, first off, even if we fail at addressing what is, I think, the bigger, longer term issue, I'd rather be on the side of doing this kind of work than not. A lot of people ask as a question, how do you handle the stress of your job? You probably, Thomas, get that question. My first response is always, when I go through the drive-through at a fast food restaurant in the morning for my Egg McMuffin, not to use a brand, but
God, I love Egg McMuffins.
Yeah, so do I.
Sausage biscuits.
Jeez, wow.
Don't tell me that the person at that counter job is not more stressful than mine.
Yeah.
I mean, the pressure is like, I got to get this on time right every time, and all these people, and stuff goes wrong. It's like, this is life. But the other part is, just okay. You're going to have it. Always just keep doing the best you can, and this too shall pass. You'll get through this, and it'll be okay. And when I was younger, I used to have stomach aches in the morning worrying about stuff. And eventually you just kind of learn, it's okay, do the best you can. And I think that's the way I would look at from a worst case standpoint. If all we're doing is alleviating and the problem as it is today, I'd rather that was my life. As one way or another, we are going to come up with what's the solution, because this is not going to stay like this. And so I hope that we have this happen in a very peaceful way, in a way that doesn't just, break. And I think this is where, like, us trying to play that role is like, we've got to give it our best shot.
Yeah.
Wow. Heavy conversation. I'm like,
yeah, it's interesting watching Shannon and Ev as you and I. So as I mentioned,
you guys talk all the time, right? And this is our first time.
As I mentioned, one of the stories I would tell is before we had the hurricane in 2017. Was that Irma?
Yes.
Yeah. I remember standing out on my back porch, and it was about 2 days before the storm, and I called him. It was on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon. I said, "What?" That. Right? I was like, "What do I do?"
Yeah.
He's like, "Okay, here's what you need to do. You need to go out and rent trucks now. Don't wait till the storm hit. Get some temporary space. Get some temporary, drivers." I mean, I had a list of things that I immediately called our team and said, "Okay, we got to do this." Right? It's one of the reasons why I love this work is the hope that I think all of us feel in doing this, that it is a sense of, I think, as you said, being on the right side of history. I think the question we would ask is, how did you come to that philosophy in your life? Is that a parental influence? Is that
experience? Is it?
No. I grew up lower middle class, son of a mechanic. But I do remember one incident that I do remember, and it touched me differently. So I was with my dad in his pickup truck, and he always had aluminum cans in the back of his pickup truck, not beer, but soda cans, because he was a scoutmaster. And, they would collect it as a fundraiser. And he sees a guy digging through trash for food. And you can guess what my dad did, except he'd be not quite right, because he didn't say, "Hey, I've got these cans I'm willing to give you that you can turn in for cash." He said, hey, excuse me, can you do me a favor? I have all these cans in my back of my truck I'd like to get rid of. Would you mind taking them? And it really struck me, in that moment, just like the dignity with my dad. And, I spoke to the man. He's like, "Man, I want to be somebody like that." Now, I didn't think that was going to lead me to be I just wanted to be a nice person.
But there's a direct line from there to today.
Right? Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, now, we do this work. We are able to take care of our families, and we're able to I don't know if it's the right side of history, but it feels like we're doing the right thing.
Yeah. I don't think any of us could say that any better.
Yeah. No. So we're coming to the close of the show, and there's a question that we ask everyone who comes in. Okay? So you're at a table. You can have 3 people join you at the table for conversation and a meal. Who are your 3, and what are you serving?
Living or dead.
Yeah. It could be
Real or
anyone.
fictional.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so I'm going to go Newton. I'm going to go George Washington.
Okay.
And Neil deGrasse Tyson is my living one.
Wow, good combos. Tyson and Newton, yeah.
And what's this conversation about? I don't even want to know. I don't even want to know about what you're serving quite yet.
Washington's kind of, they're different. It's just, to me, he was a flawed person. But, the willingness to say no, you had, you could have been a dictator. You could have been, and there's like, that's not what I'm going to do. And how different the world is as a result is, is quite amazing. And so I just, that's interesting. And then the other 2, these are brilliant scientists' minds. And I love talking to engineers. I love talking to scientists. I love talking to people like that.
And the time gap on those would be,
oh yeah, everybody's got
mind would be like,
yeah, you'd be like, what?
We did what?
Oh, it's serving. Oh, yeah, because a number of things. But this time of year, I think some jambalaya. I was telling Thomas that I actually now can do giant batches because I brought a cauldron, like a witch's iron cast cauldron, that I can do
at home. He bought this at home.
Nice.
I can do like 150 servings worth of jambalaya at once.
Wow. Do you have the hat, like the witch's hat and
No,
everything to go with it? Oh, I thought it was like a
But I do have the
like,
paddle.
Okay, good. At least there's,
It's actually a crawfish paddle.
That's awesome. Oh, man. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I think this is a wonderful time for us to have you here. Hunger Action Month. You kind of have gotten us through the journey of what food banking was, what it is, and what it needs to become, and how important that is. It's not more than a meal, is what we say around here.
One of the things we often reflect on societally is who is a hero. We like people that can throw the ball a long way or amass a certain record or run faster or right. But
that's how you hurt my elbow.
Is that what it was? Yeah, it was a long throw.
Wrong throw.
Right. I think we've missed a lot of, we had Tim Marks in here not that long ago from MetMan. I think we really need to shift the definition of who we think is a hero.
Right.
To me, Brian is a hero.
Yeah.
He has served this cause nobly.
Yes.
For a long time. And
well, then you talk about opinions, right? And all of us decided when you come with your opinion, with the juice to back it up, it's absolutely worth listening to. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And boy, it's such a pleasure to be here. You guys have thought through not only the work here, but the environment you've created in which to do it so thoroughly. It is really impressive.
It's cozy, right?
High praise indeed.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Yeah. So lots of really amazing takeaways from today. I think, the thing that stuck out the most for me was talking about how there is so much divisiveness in the country and in the world, but that it comes back to like we all do have the same needs, and the people doing this work want to be good people. That's why you do it, not because you know that you're going to win, but because you have to make the effort. And I'm curious, like what really stuck. There was a lot, I'm sure a lot that was like really hit you guys today, but what sticks out in your minds?
Well, the conversation sticks out in my mind, and we're talking about being part of a network, right? And we know that we have shifted our path. Obviously, Houston has been a leader in that. How many communities and food banks in our over 200 aren't there yet? And they really need to be. And how can we help them get there? So that was what was going around in my mind. Like he mentioned New Orleans, and it was more difficult community. It's how do we get everyone on the same page so we can push that forward and really change things, not just feed change.
Yeah. Mine was really simple, and I guess I probably knew it, but the way in which it was articulated, it's more important to be on the right side of history. If whether this succeeds or fails, I will have done my part.
Yeah. I hope that inspiration kind of leads into other people to make them want to do it as well, because it's not that you're going to win, it's that you know what you want to happen.
Right. Yeah. And you have hope and you believe in it.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Looking forward to
Another
Good to
one
see
of
you
the
again.
books.